Hello everyone. I would like to welcome NICE to organize such a really great event, and this is a special session on future of Afghanistan. And I'm sorry to tell you that our Professor Sanjay Srivastava, Department of Political Science, BHU, is not available due to some reason. I have the responsibility to chair this session. I'm Dr. Ankur. I am from JawaharlalNehru University. I a special center for national security studies. And so I would like to ask first that who is there in the panel? Prakash, Jangid is there. Hello, Prakash,
Hello.
can you
Yes,
hear
sir.
me?
Yes,
Are
sir.
you here? So you will be the first presenter, and we will have around 20 minutes of presentation, and then we will go for the next presentation. Dr. Nuzhat Nazneen. I'm sorry for my pronunciation if I'm not pronouncing the right name. Are you
Hello, sir.
here?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm over here.
Okay. So you will be the second presenter
Okay, sir.
after Prakash. And then Swati Sinha.
Yes, sir, I'm
Swati,
here.
are you here? Okay. And then we are having Saroj, Kumar, Aryal.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll go for this, and we will start from Prakash. Prakash, or we can go for 25 minutes also. We have sufficient time, as we just got to know that two of our speakers are also not available. So we can start now. Prakash, you're most welcome. And I would like to introduce you also a bit about Afghanistan, because it is very much important not only for the global security but regional security also, and also for individual countries, that every country is seeing towards Afghanistan. So I'm really looking forward to listen all your presentation. Good luck. Please, Prakash, you can start now.
Good evening to the chair, Dr. Ankur Yadav, sir, and, and Dr. Pramod Jaiswal for the opportunity to speak at this special conference. My topic for the presentation is on the global governance in the post-US-Afghanistan challenges and opportunities. At a time of the discussion of the situation in Afghanistan, which is unfolding at a faster pace than anticipated by the world, with all the foreign forces abandoning their bases and a small chunk of US force is handling the Hamid Karzai airport in order to provide a safe passage to foreigners and the Afghans who had helped them in different capacities during their 2-decade counterinsurgency mission. Much has been debated over the role of US, Russia, India, China, Pakistan in the coming days and the challenging strategy for dealing with the new power, which is the Taliban. The question is, who is next in the line to brave the security challenge that Afghanistan poses regionally and globally, now that the last American will be out soon? Here comes the role of different institutions of the United Nations, be it the UNICEF, UNHRC, UNGA, Security Council, and the UN Special Mission Assistance Mission for Afghanistan, and also the different regional organizations like SCO, BRICS, SARCs, and also the non-governmental organizations under the broader umbrella of global governance. The term global governance is being defined as the process of international cooperation among transnational actors aimed at negotiating responses to problems that affect more than one state or region. The global war on terrorism arguably presented a form of emerging global governance in the sphere of security, with the United States leading cooperation among various Western states, non-Western nations, and international institutions. In the recent SCO meeting, the G7 meeting, and the UN Security Council's special meeting to be taken place today or tomorrow, I think, the focus on Afghanistan and its current development are seen in a wait and watch situation. If we are talking on the role of United Nations in Afghanistan, then the United Nations Assistance Mission on Afghanistan was established in March 2002 by the Resolution 1401. It was a UN special political mission established to assist the state and the people of Afghanistan in laying the foundation for sustainable peace and development. Since its original mandate was to support the implementation of the Bonn Agreement, but in the recent times, the Security Council recognized and renewed its mandate in support of Afghanistan's full assumption of leadership, ownership in the security, governance, and development areas. But as the situations are changing in a faster pace, this needs to be seen in the coming days. Since 2008, the following directive of the UN Secretary General, the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan is an integrated mission. That means the special political mission, all UN agencies, funds, and programs work in a multidimensional and integrated manner to better assist Afghanistan according to nationally defined priorities. There are roughly 20 agencies under the UN country team that were having offices in Afghanistan. In the current situation, the United Nations has advised its staff to stand down and avoid going to the airports, while many are still waiting on the issuance of passports and opportunity to obtain visa to the US, Canada, or neighboring countries, in spite of threats they are facing, a fact accepted by the UN Secretary General in his recent remarks on Afghanistan. While the UN and the international community have a moral obligation to protect the hundreds of thousands of Afghans seeking protection from possible exploitation and repression, it is also important to rethink the state of development in Afghanistan in the light of Taliban's reclamation of power. The United Nations largely failed to anticipate the possibility of Taliban assuming control, even as violence soared in the weeks and months prior to the fall of Kabul. The challenges in Afghanistan, the challenges which the UN and we as a global community face are bigger when we see that 18 million people, that is around 15% of population in the country, need aid assistance, and 1 in 3 children is expected to be severely malnutrition as per the UNICEF report. Since the fighting has taken a heavy toll on the already fragile health system, which faces a shortage of essential medical supplies and equipments in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. The reports from the UN Human Rights Office underline chilling reports of human rights abuses and of restrictions on the rights of individuals, especially women, girls in parts of the country captured over the past few weeks. Amid grave concerns about the risk of new human rights violations against the civilians in Afghanistan, the UN Refugee Agency needs to secure that the refugee host nation do not repatriate vulnerable Afghan nationals. All this speaks of a new reality facing the United Nations going forward. How does the UN contribute to championing human rights and inclusivity in the development initiatives? There have been various steps in the recent time of post the Taliban takeover of Kabul, like the US has frozen around $9.5 billion assets belonging to the Afghan Central Bank and even stopped the shipment of cash to the nation as it tries to keep a Taliban-led government from accessing the money. Even the IMF has suspended $440 million as the reserves, and the World Bank, which had committed around $5.3 billion in assistance since 2002 in reconstruction development projects, has also halted funding for projects after the seized control of the country by Taliban. All these steps are in the direction of ongoing talks between Taliban, since they are showing their desire for gaining legitimacy. My concluding remarks on the current situation that the Taliban cannot be taken at their face value, which they are trying to show through their press conference, and the opposite is being perpetrated on the ground by its fighters, like the sending up of women journalists back home, to breaking up of school infrastructures, or calling for general amnesty and killing people who have worked with the government in the past. All of this will have an important repercussion on the other Islamist groups that have been inspired by the Taliban victory, creating a new vicious cycle of attacks and counterattacks as seen on the yesterday's attack at the Kabul airport and being claimed by the Islamic State. The situation is that so far in the near term, isolation and distance might be the best course of action, at least until the UN and other international actors can determine what factions of Taliban control various line ministries or departments. Till then, the UN agencies shall operate remotely as they have in the past. The humanitarian community, both the United Nations and non-governmental organizations, will have to remain committed to helping people in Afghanistan. While the situation is highly complex, humanitarian agencies need to be committed in supporting vulnerable people in Afghanistan who need us more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you, Prakash. It was really brief and nice presentation. I would like to invite now Dr. Nuzhat Nazneen. Please.
Good evening, everyone. This is Nuzhat Nazneen. So I'm basically a faculty member at Amity University, and I thank NICE for this opportunity to have this conversations on one of the heated topics of today's. So the topic of my presentation is a prospective juncture of the South Asian collaboration, the Afghanistan question. Actually, it is a question. The thing is that the way the situations are unfolding in front of us, it is a sort of question. We have no idea how the situations are going to turn. May have assumptions, we can guess on the future prospects and possibilities, but still there's no clear-cut future that we can see that, okay, this is going to happen. So present situation in Afghan is actually a question to us, and also to the South Asian collaboration or the South Asian politics. So I would like to make one thing clear over here is like, my paper is from the regional perspective. So I am addressing this question, but from the regional perspective, the South Asian politics. I'm not talking about internal politics of Afghanistan and the recent developments in it, but I'm more concerned on its impact in the entire region. And as we all know that South Asia is of all the contested but strategically significant regions of the world, this region occupies an important and politically relevant position. And something peculiar about the region is that it manifests multitudes of problematic issues, political, social, financial, cultural, and many more. But ironically, these strenuous sites, these same points which hinder the path of a collaborative future, they are also the potential areas where lies the scope of improved ties. So all these problematic scenarios, the social, cultural issues that we have in the region which prevent us from coming together, they are the same sites which we can basically explore to improve the ties because we have these shared cultural values, even though we have the political differences. And obviously, there's a sense of insecurity. And this sense obviously dominates the foreign policy and even the joint endeavors of these geographically proximate countries. There we have like unresolved border issues. We have conflicting narratives of many events. And all these things have basically prevented the countries from growing into an united region. And irrespective of several attempts of politico-economic solutions to the existing problems, the region is still in chaos. And most of the times we are seeking external support, presently either in the US or in China. So in this scenario, with this background, this paper attempts to explore a reinvigorated political solution amidst strategically significant recent developments in Afghanistan. So the query to be investigated now is whether the countries have reached political maturity to translate this opportunity into a tactical gain for the region, or whether the prospect is to be lost in the narrative of rivalries all over again. So here, Afghanistan and Taliban coming to power has left us with so many options. Countries can choose different paths. So what is the future? So present day Afghanistan and the world, the relationship. So obviously, we are confronted with lots of issues now. We have humanitarian catastrophe, we have refugee crisis, the problems of terrorist organizations gaining significance. We have issues of national security. We can talk on the quote unquote military collapse of Afghanistan. So all these things are justifiably, they are into the global media. The question that whether Taliban 2.0 is humane or callous towards the rights of the Afghan people, it is obviously a matter of concern. But in international politics, nations with their foreign policies, they prioritize manipulating their national interests. So it is the national interests which we have to basically be more considerate about in international arena. And it is the very reason that the Western powers, they have ceremoniously acknowledged assisting even the Taliban in rebuilding Afghan society and its economy. So they are not taking a step back. They are actually, obviously, they are going for wait and watch policy, but they have also given a signal that if things go fine, they are ready to rebuild the Afghan society even with Taliban. So the evolving currency of politics is politics of influence. So everyone wants to have the influence. Even when the West has to move out of Afghanistan, they would want to have their influence in the region. So, and military with its destructive and fear-mongering tendencies is just a extension or a counterpart, a frailer counterpart of politics of influence. So influence is a major tool. And in this scheme, when we look into the politico-military development in Afghanistan, it changes the map of South Asian politics. And this area is already scattered into like political rivalries. And what is the cause of concern is like, we have our neighboring region where the group association, ASEAN, they are doing fine. But when they fare better than this regional organization of SARC. So that is a matter of concern. Now coming back to the region again. So mostly it is the political rivalries and external intrusion on the politics of the region, which have prevented the region from realizing its potential for socio-economic development. So we all are very busy in our rivalries, and that definitely it is going to express itself in some ways. So we are basically suffering in our socio-economic development. And now with the change of political regime in Afghanistan, it is again carrying another chance of burgeoning rivalries with an important actor of the region, that is India. And India already being in a compromising position with an additional rival in its geographical proximity, along with already complicated equations at LAC with China and LOC with Pakistan. And strategically, Pakistan, with its leading role in the US-Taliban talks, has occupied a significant position in this political game of the region. And we have other extended members. We have China and Russia. These two giants of the Asian belt, they have also signaled their unbroken endeavor also with the Taliban leaders in Afghanistan. And India is yet to comment on its probable political relationship with the Taliban. And all these situations, like when we get back to how this withdrawal of America has been happening in Afghanistan, there's this abrupt withdrawal of America from Afghanistan. It has aggravated the turmoil and left the neighboring countries with turbulent fissures at their sensitive borders. So we have security issues. The chaotic spillover is expected to destabilize the region further, actually further destabilize it. So under these circumstances, when American leadership narrowed down their focus only to their national interests and to the interest of their Western allies, it becomes mandatory that the South Asian countries incapacitate their egoistic and long prevailing entities and explore the possibilities of regional cooperation. Different countries of the region, they have like a smorgasbord of reasons, they have attempted peace with explicit or implicit external political intrusions. Every time it is the region that is put at stake, and the quote unquote outsiders, they leave in their time of convenience. ignoring the politically burning territories, their economic ruin, and their social destabilization. So, what can we say on the foreign policy in the South Asian region during these times? So the US base in Afghanistan was the ventilator support for an active American presence in the South Asian politics. And its ignominious retreat and accusation on the Afghan government and military of the debacle is the embodiment of a realization that US diplomacy no longer drags an operation if its national interests are at stake. So the withdrawal of the US has been gradual but abrupt towards the end, complicating the administrative possibilities in Afghanistan. With the Taliban regaining power in Afghanistan, strategic dynamics in South Asia changes. The tactical shift from political status quo to the fear of instability. So earlier it was a status quo situation, and now we have this fear of instability. And this shift, this tactical shift, it acts as a catalyst to reincarnate the almost a dead baby SARC. So here is a possibility for SARC to revive its significance. And in the regional equation, Pakistan is already drumming the beats of its strategic victory, and China echoes the similar tunes. However, as far as my understanding goes, even in these situations, it is India that is still in the kingmaker's position, despite whatever is happening. The only thing, the only clause on which this kingmaker position lies is like how India decides to work with the changes in Afghanistan, recent changes in Afghanistan. And whatever India decides, it is definitely going to affect both the regional stability and the global politics. Obviously, predictability ensures economic security, and it also ensures stability. That is fine. However, the political predictability of actors make their decisions obvious, and thus the country loses the possibilities of gains in bargains. The unfortunate reality of the Indian foreign policy makes India quite predictable. Hence, its moves are easily confronted with ready-made diplomatic tools. Okay. Yesterday itself, in the all-party meeting, India echoed the West on its stand on wait and watch policy in Afghanistan. Now we have a reality. We are surrounded by mighty powers who have left open the possibilities of exchanges with Afghanistan by keeping their embassies in Kabul open. India, in siding with the West, is letting another chance of South Asian regional stability go to waste. So will India be able to use this chance of the position of kingmakers? That is again in question. It is only through the communication links that the key concerns, including the meaningful participation of all Afghans, especially women and minority groups, in the changed reality can be realized. So we need to have the communication link, then only we can influence the decisions of the neighbors also. Sorry. So India appears secluded in a challenging regional landscape, and even the scope to change this situation is bleak, especially with the reliance of the government on the national security narrative vis-a-vis Pakistan for domestic popularity. And it leaves India in a further compromising position in the political matrix of Taliban, a Pakistani project coming to power in Afghanistan. However, the leverage that India has is the support of common people in Afghanistan. And India can cash this leverage by developing people-to-people contact, which can be possible once a workable solution between India and the new government in Taliban can be reached. We have this reality of China also, that again, the politics of influence, this is the age of politics of influence, and China in no way is going to miss this opportunity to enhance its influence in the Afghanistan region as well. So, but we also have to understand this fact that despite China being a huge investor, India must make use of the fact that China is facing the repercussions of the creditor's trap, especially with whatever happened in Venezuela. Hence, China is in a position where it cannot afford a failed state in Afghanistan if it invests over there, and it is going to invest as the situations are unfolding. and nor it can afford a destabilized Pakistan because it has already invested a lot over there. So Indian foreign policy must correspond to all these contextual developments. And with major actors coming together in South Asian region, it is a politically ripe situation when India must camouflage its national interest into regional security discourse and develop an economically integrated region. Once the national objectives are met, calls for humanitarian efforts can be impactfully made. Realism remains a thriving theory of international politics and foreign policy even today. So on the concluding note, I would like to say that the politics of South Asia is now at a juncture where the entire map can change and the region can be reimagined into an integrated economic unit, if not a politically unified one. Internal politics in Afghanistan must be a priority for the regional members, and it must be, but only after they are able to develop an inspiring regional political pact of peaceful coexistence, respecting the sovereignty and internal politics of the concerned parties. Once the region is strengthened, even the horrific debacles, they can be politically handled. The Afghan rights must be respected, but the people of Afghanistan should decide who provides them with these rights. It is the time when the states could help stabilize Afghanistan first. I'm not talking on interfering in the internal affairs. Obviously, the problems must be highlighted, but our concerns must also be to work on the reimagination of South Asian politics. In the end, it is the country, followed by the region, that must be prioritized in the international politics, because a stable country in an unstable region has the least chance of developing to its full potential. Thank you so much.
And thank you so much. It was really a nice presentation and giving a different perspective to see the regional perspective, and also seeing that how we can develop inside and outside South Asia, how we can tackle the outside powers, how we can deal with the humanitarian assistance or development of human index inside South Asia, and also good comparison with ASEAN. They shared this cultural value. I would like to ask some more interesting question at the end. Now I would like to invite Swati Sinha. Swati?
Chair. Yeah, I'm here. I hope I'm audible.
Is very low actually. Can you, if it is possible?
Is it all right now?
It's okay. It's okay. Okay, you can start. Good luck.
Thank you so much, and good evening to all, and thank you so much, Chair, once again. I would begin by thanking NICE Nepal for organizing this International Studies Convention and bringing such diverse scholars and experts from all fields of international studies to share their insights and knowledge. I'm also extremely privileged and honored to be sharing the panel with you, esteemed and eminent experts from the field of IR and security studies. So thank you a lot. And without any further delay, I will directly dive into my chosen topic, which is on implications of the United States withdrawal from Afghanistan for today's theme of discussion, which is on future of Afghanistan. My topic is very open-ended, and hence my attempt is to look into the challenging implications that US is going to leave in Afghanistan. And how is it going to derail the hard-earned women's rights, infrastructural development of, and also, you know, the trillion of amount that has gone into military assistance in Afghanistan. So how all of these can be challenged, you know, with this withdrawal of US, which is possible in, which is, you know, ongoing at the moment. So let me begin by, you know, delving a little deeper into the history of this US involvement in Afghanistan. And we can understand that, you know, inevitably, Afghanistan seems to be standing at the same position, you know, from where it had all begun. 20 years ago, the United States got engaged in Afghanistan soon after the 9/11 attacks with an objective to ensure that Afghanistan is freed from sheltering any terrorist organization. And in addition to dismantling Al-Qaeda, the US operation also aimed at denying it a safe haven in Afghanistan by bringing down the Taliban from power. Now, beginning with a massive airstrike, which was targeted by the US, it marked the onset of Operation Enduring Freedom, and a dismay among Al-Qaeda and its Taliban hosts, who had no choice except to flee and take shelter in the neighboring tribal areas of Pakistan. So the most common response that the US and the Western ally and the region that gained or received, initially was that of victory and optimism, which again was proved wrong with the later Taliban surge. And the turn of events that followed gave the Taliban an ideal situation to regroup and reorganize them, only to emerge much stronger in force, which the result of which is very much evident in front of all of us with the current situation which is prevailing in the country. And therefore, I do not shy away from saying that it took almost four US presidents, trillions of foreign aid, civilians and military casualties, a transition phase, several negotiations that had its own share of detours and upheavals to result into something which is quite visible in the current time in the country of Afghanistan. And we also saw the return of the Taliban 2.0. Now, when I compare the current state of Afghanistan with its past, a few inevitable implications come to my mind, and I will share those one by one. And all these implications are, again, very interlinked, very closely interlinked. Beginning with, the repetition of history. So this fear is almost lingering in every mind of Afghan. That in mid-1989 is where the swift withdrawal process of the Soviet-led army that took place, and they handed over to certain provinces very prematurely. So the new governing authorities that had come into being in the late 80s, they were ill-equipped to govern the country, contributing to the rise in power of Islamist insurgents and plunging Afghanistan into civil war. And we know that, after a 3-year civil war, which was waged in Afghanistan between the de facto government and rival factions of the insurgent Mujahideen, the Taliban emerged victorious. And why did they emerge victorious? Because they promised that they are going to bring peace and stability in the country, which is why they were able to attract popular support by claiming to uphold peace and rule of law and things like that. However, we then witnessed the turn in events and how the Taliban really charged their atrocities, their brutality, implementing Sharia law and their actions towards the Afghan women, the females particularly. So the current situation in Afghanistan also presents similar conditions as these historical ones, and it grants Taliban significant leverage, considering ever since the start of the peace process in 2018, the legitimacy was definitely provided to the Taliban, and they have been able to play by their rules. The Taliban does not accept the current constitution, and throughout the talks, the Taliban negotiators refused to meet with the government in Kabul, whom they considered, the puppet regime. So the Taliban also has no prior history of working alongside any political parties in Afghanistan. Therefore, a very pertinent question that emerges is, if or when they come to power, how effectively are they going to engage with other political parties of the country? Yeah. And the fundamentalist group regard itself as Afghanistan's legitimate government, and they have always referred themselves as Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. So are we expecting a poor Saudi Arabia, or a very poor Islamic country in our neighborhood, which is going to come into being under the Taliban? Here, I would also like to, briefly comment on the Taliban 2.0, as in, how different are they? Or is there really any change in their approach? And if there is a change, then what are those? Yeah. So definitely the Taliban 2.0 are smarter, they are deceptive, and has a better media strategy, meaning they are advanced, they are technologically sane, However, when we delve into the ideology, they continue to be as brutal, cynical, and regressive as before. Yeah. So this could all generate to the second implication, which directly impacts the security situation, and which I'm highlighting in my second point, which is violence in a huge way. The way Taliban is advancing, it has an implication of mass violence and insurgency. Also, with no US backing, no support, the absence of support that there's going to be, the vacuum that's going to be there, it has negative repercussion in terms of mass violence and insurgency. And here I would also like to link this violence on Afghan soil, to the United States' interest in Afghanistan, which was to defend their national security by preventing any large-scale attacks like 9/11. Okay, agree that since October 2001, the US counterterrorism measures in Afghanistan have prevented another large-scale attack against the US. However, we cannot rule out the presence of more than 20 terrorist or extremist groups which are present on Afghan soil at the moment. And ISKP might also capitalize on even greater instability and has a potential of filling that power vacuum to ramp up its recruitment efforts and has the ability of carrying out international terror activity, potentially by collaborating with the Al-Qaeda. Therefore, history seems ripe to repeat itself at the moment, and there are huge implications, which one could think of. And again, at what cost is this American national security being achieved, right? It is the Afghans who are paying the price for elongated years of unprecedented war in their own country. So US exit has implications on some developments that have been made in terms of infrastructure. And this I'm highlighting in my third implication, which is challenge to developments and advancements. So there has been significant development in terms of infrastructure, democratic dividend, and women's rights and freedoms in Afghanistan. Roads have been repaired and restored, and there has been noticeable reconstruction. However, the pertinent question that immediately comes to being is how will these assets be sustained now? Yeah, such reconstruction is of no use when extremism is still prevailing in the country. The way the insurgent groups have expanded and are carrying out attacks poses great challenges to the years of assistance that was given to the country. And when we speak of the Afghan women, we would understand that they have been put to a lot of risk. Given the fact that the immediate influence of the US involvement in Afghanistan encouraged the women and girls of Afghanistan to step forward, pursue education, run for office, establish businesses, and even join the military. So they were able to do so only because they had the assurance and support backing from the Americans. Yeah. However, now with this US exit, the challenges have come across in plenty. The Taliban's territorial expansion has posed a threat to women's security, and it has even started to erase the hard-earned women's rights. Like if I have to give a picture, in Afghanistan, the presence of women is approximately 48.7% of the entire population. And more importantly, 2/3 of Afghanistan's population is under the age of 25. So it means that they had never lived under the Taliban regime. They have not seen the atrocity and the harsh ruling of the Taliban. And many of the youth, they have grown in an environment where women were allowed to access education and pursue careers of their choosing. So for this young population, the possible return of the Taliban to power would be deeply troubling. And it poses the main challenge towards these young populace of Afghanistan. Lastly, I'll talk about the Afghan security forces. United States withdrawal has definitely left behind a very poorly trained Afghan defense forces, spoiling any capacity building hopes that the forces had in the first place. The security environment has and will continue to deteriorate even more in the face of the emerging challenge. And in this in particularly in the case of Afghan security forces, despite attempting offensive strikes, they are not producing the desired results. And we also see that there is, a critical improvement needs to be brought about in the intelligence capacity of the ANDSF, given they are facing significant challenges, and it will require support and assistance for some more time to be able to deal with the Taliban. So it's really an open-ended statement to which can be deliberated on and on. And so just to conclude, I would end it by saying that there's really no well-crafted solution to the challenges which is being faced by the Afghan forces.
So a bit low again, but it's fine. I think you can conclude.
All right. So I was just making the concluding remarks.
Yes.
The efficacy of the forces will remain a point of discussion for some time, certainly. And the rollback of US forces in Afghanistan has only furthered the strength and resilience of the Taliban, which you can see, the way with which they are, in all spite fighting. So it will also, it has also laid Islamic State and other radical components, to gain more influence in the region and over the Afghan population. Therefore, how it's going to be, which point the conflict has reached, and where it will be able to resolve is something that we have to really watch for. So with this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you, and apologies for the inconvenience with the internet. Thank you.
Thank you, Swati. It was really nice presentation. It's like seeing the history of US involvement, and again the repetition of history that they involved and they left the country again, and then explanation of Taliban 2.0 also, that how they are maybe technically advanced, but still the violence is their priority when they are talking about their religion or so. And that's also that the good point which you mentioned, that who is suffering, of course, the Taliban and the Afghan people. So of course the world power involved there, they came, they fulfilled their interest, and they were not ready to solve their problem, and they just left the country in their own mode. And the most important point about the young women which you mentioned, that last 20 years these women or ladies, they didn't see the real Taliban rule. So yeah, it will be a really great challenge, not only for the Afghan people, but also for the world community. They are supporting this gender discrimination somehow if they are not going to help them. So thank you so much, Swati. It was a really nice presentation. Now I would like to invite Saroj Kumar.
So I hope my audio is all right.
Yes, it is. Please.
Okay. So hello, everyone. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are attending this conference from. So I'd like to start from thanking our chair and thanking Dr. Pramod Jaiswal and NICE Nepal for organizing such a wonderful event to talk about historical, contemporary, and current state of international affairs and various dynamics of international politics. So let me start by introducing myself, that I'm Saroj Aryal. I'm originally from Nepal, but at the moment I am in Poland doing my PhD at Warsaw University. So today I'm particularly going to talk about the implications of Taliban takeover in Afghanistan to India particularly. So instead of focusing what India used to do in Afghanistan or what India's position was in Afghanistan, I'm trying to be as futuristic as possible, or I'm trying to see the implications on those area of concerns and those areas that should really be, that's India should really be worried about, or should be about, or those areas where India should be planning to deal with in coming future. So first, I'm going to talk slightly about India's interest or the implication on those interests that India have in Afghanistan. And then I'll move to India's engagement, what kind of engagement that India used to have and what kind of implications those engagement now is going to have. And I'll also slightly touch the role or the stance that India took on the peace negotiation that happened between Taliban and mostly US, China, Russia, and those other parties. And I'm also going to touch slightly on what is the current stance that India is taking or the perception that India have regarding Taliban government and Taliban taking over Afghanistan. And at last, I'm going to see or try to give some recommendation on what India immediately can start doing in Afghanistan in terms of mitigating all those speculation or mitigating all those challenges that they are facing currently. So if we particularly talk about the significance or the interest that India have in Afghanistan, we first and foremost, the most important thing we need to talk about is security, I think. So if we see the security interest of India in Afghanistan, it is, so we have a fresh memory or the not that old memory that in 1999, just 2 years before US overthrown Taliban government, Air Indian flight was hijacked from Kathmandu and taken to Kabul, and this was done by Taliban-backed terrorists. And the implications or these groups negotiated with India to release some of the leading the terrorist figures that were in jail or that were like going through the sentence of in India. So that's a memory we have. And so when we particularly talk about Taliban coming back to Afghanistan, so we can also speculate or we can also made an opinion based on the past experience that Taliban may provide that safe haven to other terrorist organizations that directly or indirectly have some connections with India, or that can have implications on Indian national security. So as per the latest report of Indian intelligence agency, that they are also speculating that some Pakistan-based organization like Lashkar-e-Taiba, Mohammed, this organization are being little more active in this Jammu and Kashmir region. So that is also one of the things that India should be concerned about. And if we generally see the medias and analyze the content that has been published regarding Taliban taking over of Afghanistan, so we can also see a little bit like pro-Taliban sentiments and rise of these pro-Taliban sentiments in Pakistan also. So that may also have some sort of national security implications for India. So overall, if we talk about security implication and those things, we can say that US withdrawal have poke a hole in India's national security. So that's the first interest or the implications that we should always keep in mind if we are talking about Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. Then second one I would say would be strategic implication. On the strategic front, India should be concerned mostly about three things. The first things will be that India will have implications on those grand connectivity projects that India is having or dreaming about, that particularly concerns Afghanistan. So India have some strategic connectivity projects that concerns Afghanistan. So these projects are now in jeopardy because of this Taliban takeover, or because of not having clear chain of communication between India and Taliban. So because India and Kabul have no shared boundaries, while at the same time India's competitor or India's rivals, Pakistan and China have. And New Delhi views Tehran, or New Delhi's one of the ideal connectivity project was to go to Afghanistan or Central Asia through Iran, through Chabahar port. So they also signed, India, Iran and Afghanistan also signed the connectivity projects. connectivity, to put forward this connectivity project. So these kind of connectivity projects are also now in the future of this kind of projects. Connectivity projects are also now in shared. So this is also one of the things we should see. And when we particularly talk about strategic concerns that India have, there are two things that are also now in now the complications of two things also increase due to Afghanistan uncertainty. That is India managing Pakistan and India mitigating the rise of China through Afghanistan. So why I included China mitigating the rise of China is if we see overall pattern of India's engagement in Asia and the Pacific region. So most of the cooperation, most of the coalition, most of the engagement that India is having is directly or indirectly concerned with mitigating rise of China or saving its interest from China. So of losing the groundhold in Afghanistan is also one of the challenges that India will have in terms of mitigating the rise of China. And at the same time, in the unofficial level, we have been like reading about proxy war that India and Pakistan is having in Afghanistan. So that is also going to have face some sort of challenge in coming days, just because the Taliban takeover of the Afghanistan. And another significance we need to talk about is economic significance that India have, or economic interest that India have. So if we talk about the trade in figures, I think India and Afghanistan roughly have 1.3 billions of trade interaction between the two. So India exports approximately 900 million of trades and goods, and at the same time where India imports approximately 500 millions of trades and goods from Afghanistan. So India mostly imports fresh and dry fruits from Afghanistan, and we already have seen spike in price of those things in India due to Taliban already have stopped the supply chain from Afghanistan to India. So the economic interaction between India and Afghanistan basically happens through air corridors, because Pakistan have disallowed sending Indian goods and trades through Pakistan to Afghanistan, but at the same time, Pakistan have allowed Afghanistan trades and goods to go through Pakistan to India. So now that is also stopped since few weeks now. So air is not a viable option at the moment, as the airport or the air facilities itself is in a very messy situation, and at the same time the border is also closed. So this economic interaction is more or less in a complete shutdown state. So that is also one of the area that concerns India if we talk about the takeover of Taliban. And most importantly, it's also have India's, so if we talk about India's interest in Afghanistan and its implications, I think it's going to implicate on the projection of India's regional power status as well. So if we overall evaluate India's neighborhood first policy or neighborhood policy, it has been directly challenged by its arch rival China in overall South Asia. If we take the example of Nepal, if we take the example of Sri Lanka, if we take the example of Maldives or Bangladesh, China is looking for a perfect opportunity to replace India as a primary partner or replace India as a regional power in South Asia. So this changing or emerging scenario in Afghanistan is also going to have implications on India's overall regional power status in South Asia. So talking about India's engagement in Afghanistan, India is also engaged in in reconstruction and infrastructure development through the development aid. So I was listening the speech made by External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar on 2020 November in Geneva about the Afghanistan conference about Afghanistan, and he said that no part of Afghanistan today is untouched by 400 plus projects that India has undertaken in all 34 of Afghanistan provinces. So that was the confidence we have shown in November 2020. And now the fate of this project is basically up in the air. So we don't know what's going to happen in this project. So, so India was highly engaged on reconstruction and infrastructure development projects, and India have spent approximately $3 billion on these projects. If we want to talk about the projects that is highly important for Afghanistan, there will be Afghanistan Parliament that India has built and handed over. There is Salma Dam, and there is Jarang Delaram Highway, so which is also important for India to have build this connectivity project through Iran, that they aim to connect Chabahar port with this highway so that it can directly go to Afghanistan, and through Afghanistan it can go to Central Asia. So there are other facilities that India have developed, like Indira Gandhi Institute for Child Health, and there are hydropowers, and also India have gifted around 400 buses, 200 minibuses, and like other utilities vehicles and military vehicles. So if we also talk about India's engagement, there is one huge portion of this engagement is held by capacity development programs. Like India trains around 700 to 800 Afghani soldiers each year, in mostly on IT and like high altitude warfare and those things. So around 4,500 Afghan students are studying in India, and also in New Delhi have also played a role in building capacity with the short-term vocational training courses, short-term other scholarship to Afghani student, mentoring program to civil service, training for doctors and others. So this will be the more or less engagement that India used to have, or this will be the engagement that India needs to think about when particularly make a perception or make a policy toward dealing with Taliban. So if we want to talk about what was the role India had in the peace negotiation, I would say India is a pretty latecomer in this peace negotiation. So on the first phase, it was led by USA, and Donald Trump was like, okay, we are representing US and our allies, so you don't need to be there, so we'll take care of it. And India more or less agrees on that terms. But when India came to a table to have a peace negotiation, India have put stress on Afghan's peace process should be Afghanistan led. So that's the concern that India used to have when they particularly talk about peace negotiation. And if we talk about India's current stance on Taliban's takeover, so on official level, they only published one new press release so far, or the official statement so far, and that was on 17th August 2021. And they mentioned that our immediate priority is to obtain accurate information about all Indian nationals currently in Afghanistan. The main challenge for travel to and from Afghanistan is to operational status of Kabul airport. This has been discussed at high level with our partners, including EAM with the US Secretary of State. So this looks overall fine. Everyone is concerned with evacuating their citizens, safeguarding their properties and those things. But at the same time, what concerns me seeing this news brief is India said they are constantly discussing about this scenario with US Secretary of State. And a few days ago, Prime Minister Modi also had a talk with Putin about the situation in Afghanistan. So what I see is India is in dilemma to build that perception regarding Taliban, or India is being dependent to other so-called great powers to have the perception on Taliban. But as a regional power, India should at least take a charge and start to have that official stance on Taliban as early as possible before the scenario started to get chaotic. What are the things that will determine that what future of India will be in Afghanistan is we have to see the implications of past. So if we particularly talk about implications of past, so we have to see the stance that India took during 1991 to 2001 when there was a Taliban government, and India was active supporter of these northern alliances against the Taliban government. So if that scenario or that perspective of India is going to have implications on their relations with Taliban, then the scenario will be different. And at the same time, we also have to see 2001 to 2021 stance that India had, that they were active or they had a very amicable relations with the Afghan government. And at the same time, this government were opposed by the Taliban. So if we see the past, and if past is going to implicate on present relations that India is going to have with Taliban, then these are the things that are going to create the implications. And another thing we have to see is how China-Pakistan axis is going to work out, or how that roadmap of that China-Pakistan axis on Afghanistan will look like. If China is planning on extending the CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, to Afghanistan and ultimately connect it with the Kazakhstan and Central Asian Connectivity Project, then of course this is the main concern. The CPEC is the main reason that India is opposing Belt and Road Initiative since the first day. So this axis is also going to have the implication, or this axis is also going to decide so many things for India in Afghanistan. So also we have to see India's close partnership with USA. So if we see if USA and Taliban, the relations that USA and Taliban is going to share is also going to have some sort of implications or some sort of amalgamation with India's policy toward Afghanistan. So that are the things we should be seeing in coming days, or that are the things that will determine India's policy toward Taliban. So at last, what I would like to say, what India can do now means immediately, not in coming future. Immediately, India need to first forge ties with Taliban discreetly. So instead of talking it with, of course, it's important as an international player, as a democratic state. It's important for India to incline with great powers, incline with so-called great powers that are in world, incline their policy toward Taliban with this great powers policy toward Taliban. That is important too. But at the same time, India also need to take a lead and establish that channel of communication with Taliban. Second, they also need to convince Taliban or the tribal bodies to spare India built infrastructure from the destruction. They also need to safeguard what has been already built, and they are also need to negotiate that we'll keep continuing on building, because there are so many ongoing projects that is in Afghanistan that India is involved in. So India, thirdly, should keep continuing this goodwill projects, civil to civil relation, scholarship program, trainings programs. India also need to keep continuing doing this in cooperation with upcoming government of Afghanistan. And fourth, I think India also should work on safeguarding the interest of traditional allies, Tajik, Uzbeks, Ismailis, and Hazars. India also, because India have taken this stance since 30 years now. So they are also in the name of making cooperation, or in the name of dealing with Taliban, they can't forget that these are the people that India has been advocating since very long. And fifth, I think it is the right time to increase bilateral communication with Pakistan as well. If India already have made up the mind that Taliban and Pakistan's coalition is going to hurt their national security, then it makes sense for India to now establish a proper chain of, or proper line of communications to talk about multiple bilateral issues they have been going through. They have to talk about all those existing bilateral issues they are having. And they also need to talk about what they can do, or what kind of cooperation they need to have on Taliban. So at last, I would like to say that India, as early as possible, they need to establish this chain of communication with Taliban. So that's all from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saroj. It was really in detail and it was really nice presentation. Thank you so much for presenting it. And as I am chairing, I don't think so I should present. So I would like to do some discussion and I would like to request all the participants if they can ask their question in the chat box, or they can open their mic and ask, or they can just send a SMS. And till that, I would like to ask other panelists to ask each other some interesting question, because somehow everybody is talking about Afghanistan. Of course, the perspectives are very different. Somebody is seeing that how Taliban is interesting for India, how Taliban rule is affecting women's in Afghanistan, and three or four different perspectives. So I would like if all of us can interact a bit about Afghanistan to learn from each other. That will be very beneficial for all of us. So maybe I will start. I have questions for everyone. So maybe I will start with Saroj. Saroj, how should India deal with this triangle of China, Pakistan, and Afghanistan when we start communicating with Afghanistan also? But when they are talking, like Taliban is more closer and China is directly helping them to fight the war against the Afghan people, then how do you think and what do you think India should strategize for its foreign policy to deal with this situation where China, Pakistan, and Afghanistan with Taliban rule are coming together on one stage?
So if we see all those narratives that China and India was having since very long, that it should be it's our region, we should be the one to deal whatever going on in our region. So China complains about this Western influence on everything all the time. And India is also said that this is our Asian age, this is the Asian age, and we should be part of this. So if we want to see this narrative, then I think it's a perfect moment for China and India to come and work together on the reconstruction of Afghanistan. So that would be the idealistic scenario. But if we see the ongoing clashes that India and China is having on their northern border, and if we see the historical relation between Pakistan and India, so that's a very unlikely scenario to happen. So I think India more or less have India so far have, if we talk about the broader Asia Pacific politics, India so far have adopted that cooperation and competition approach toward China. So I think in Afghanistan also, India will keep continuing doing this. So what I meant by India started to have this communication with Pakistan and China or Taliban about Afghanistan is India. So more or less, all the great powers have their perspective, or at least they already have determined perspective regarding how they want to treat or how they want to deal with Taliban. So India is basically staying very silent at the moment. So I think it's the more silent they become, the more impact it's going to have on Indian side. So today I was reading one article that considering, so the first speech, unofficial speech that Modi ji gave about Taliban was, he said that this evil will pass, this is temporary, the democratic Afghanistan will happen, and that more or less hurt one of the Taliban leader in Afghanistan, and he gave an interview that they will see by more or less threatening India on that speech. So India needs to be very careful in this stance, and so if they really wants to work in Afghanistan, so this due to Chinese engagement in Iran, and the future of Jawahar is also in very much shady situation. So since then they of course can talk with Pakistan. They also can talk with Pakistan to at least continuing this corridor that goes through Pakistan to Afghanistan, which will help both Afghanistan and India in many ways in the sense that India's involvement in reconstruction and restoration of so many things will pay stop due to this connectivity project, and at the same time trade interaction between this will be increased. So I don't think India will be openly welcoming China's intention to extend the CPEC to Afghanistan, because CPEC is the major reason behind India pull off their intention to join BRI on the first place. So I didn't see that happening. So at last, I would say that India will or should continue their policy of cooperation and competition with China and both Pakistan.
Thank you, Saroj. It was really nice this answer, and I'm fully satisfied with that you handle this question. And on the basis of Saroj's comment, I would like to ask Nuzhat, can you please explain me about this, if it is possible, that shared cultural value? It's like you mentioned in your presentation that Asian values or this shared cultural values are not that strong in South Asia that they can come and unite. For example, as Saroj mentioned, that this is a good opportunity that US is not there, that China and India can come together and solve this regional issue. Do you think that these shared cultural values are lacking? And if it is there, then we can solve problem like in Afghanistan?
Thank you, sir, for the question. So basically, in my presentation, I mentioned the point that despite the fact that we have so much of rivalries, but still we have this connection, we have shared values. So I'm talking about those shared values that we possess, and these values, they carry the potential. We have this connection because it's always like the people who are very close to each other, we have reasons to fight. So, and the same reasons that we feel that connectivity, that we fight similarly, the same connection can help us to come together. And as Mr. Aryal just now was talking about that, in international perspectives, when it is about national interest, all the theories and even the realities, they tell us that for a nation, it is the national interest which must matter the most. And there are no enemies and there are no friends in international perspectives. And again, Pakistan is an example for us, is an example where just few years back, Pakistan and US, they were so close to each other. And now suddenly we have Pakistan, which is closer to China. We have living examples over here. And as far as this situation about shared values go, then definitely these are problematic sites. For sure, these are problematic sites, but it doesn't mean that we don't have an answers to these problems. It is just the matter that we keeping our political, rivalries and problematic situations for the time being we just ignore those things, and then economy is one thing which can help even the different sorts of people, communities, nations coming together. So maybe economy can provide us that impetus to again bring those to revive the emotional bonds of cultural values. And we already have cultural exchange programs, we have student exchange programs. All these things are happening, and soft power is not any less of a power. It's like actually a huge power. And as I have also mentioned in my presentation, that India has one advantage. It's like people to people contact, and that can be, we can explore that aspect in Afghanistan for sure, because Afghanistani people, they are very close to India, and we have like exchange programs also happening. So we have cultural values, shared cultural values. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was really nice. I have one question from Simant Bharti, and anybody can answer this, or all of you can comment. What will be the determinant of the Taliban's foreign policy? I think Prakash, Jangid, and Saroj can, if both of you can comment, or all of you can comment on that. That what kind of foreign policy determinants they are going to be followed. Anybody is having any idea about that, they can comment. Yeah, please.
I can. So yeah. If we compare, okay, all those speculation that medias were having on the first place, that if Taliban came, they are going to have this, that, and those things. So those references were from 1995 actually, or until 2001. So that was like 20 years ago, when the communications, when the media, when all those things were not that popular. So mostly we used to see Western narratives, or mostly we used to see the perspective of very selected medias and selected platforms. So if we see now, so one of our colleague already mentioned about that. They are very conscious in that, like press, being friendly to press, and all those trips they had in China, all those trips they had on to Doha, they had all those talks they had with Russia or USA. So I think they are looking for a proper legitimacy. So if we want to see, they are going to, at least it's going to be a many states that exist in Middle East or Northern Africa, that they are going to have a proper sugar-coated, nicely looking foreign policy. And at the same time, they will, in the name of Sharia law and those things, they are going to control the inbound administration and governance system. That is what I think. They are going to have a very proper kind of foreign policy, but at the same time, they are going to govern Afghanistan as they want to.
Thank you, Saroj. Thank you for answering that question. There is one more question in the chat box, which is saying that did India during Vajpayee time make a strategic mistake by not sending enough many boots on the ground in AFG in the form of UN peacekeeping force? Anyone can comment on that also. Anybody wants to?
So I can give my view on that. So
Okay.
just my view. So
Yeah.
nothing personal. So I think India at that time was very much on that nightmare from Sri Lanka of Sri Lankan civil war. So I think due to that fact that India was very cautious about not making that in the, if we say it from the language or the word of Dr. Jaishankar, that he would say that misadventure of Sri Lanka. So they have that misadventure that they still dreamt about that thing. So that's the main reason that Vajpayee also played that game on a back foot that time. So that's very unpredictable situation, how situation would be now if Vajpayee would have sent the more military on that. So we can expect that he made a very good decision that time, because US fought that war for 20 years and still failed to achieve what they went there to go with all the modern technologies, with all those that financial engagement and those things. So we could have, like, I can completely say that India made a very right decision not to involve in Afghanistan, at least from like sending their military boots on the ground. So from my perspective, I would completely agree with Vajpayee's decision on not sending.
Thank you,
not
sir.
sending many
Thank
boots in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the memory of Sri Lankan decision of Indian government is still fresh in our mind, especially in South India. And that's also very much true that Indian philosophy or Indian tradition of foreign policy was not believing in war. They always wants to go for like promoting peace and trying to put their money or for the development of Afghanistan or democratic institution in Afghanistan. So somehow in that way also, I think sending our defense or people by the United peacekeeping force, and I think US already tried a lot to do that things. I think that yeah. So yeah, that was good. I have one question also for Prakash. Prakash, are you here? If you can answer, that will good. How do you see the role of China and Russia in uh, contributing in the global governance? Your presentation were on the global governance. I would like to see that you are seeing that how this United Nations and other institution can involve and help Afghanistan to develop such kind of institution which help in global governance. But do you think that China and Russia is more active in that region? How do you think that they can help and contribute, or it will be more on the opposite side? Hello, Prakash, are you here? Okay, I don't think so. He's here. So, yeah, anybody else? If anybody else wants to ask any question to each other, otherwise I will request to the organizer to end the
So
session.
I have one question for Dr. Nuzhat, if I pronounce it nice or correctly. So when I was doing my master's, I was very much interested on this functionality of SARC and those things. And I have published one or two paper on this topic also. So I want to know your perspective. Is SARC capable of dealing of this scenario in South Asia?
Okay, thank you so much for this question again, Mr. Aryal. Yes, very interesting question. And obviously, I'll have my own views about it. And if I have to be very honest, I haven't seen SARC making the most of the potential that it could have tapped on. We, again, the problem with this particular region, South Asia, is our own rivalries that we have. We haven't yet understood, even in when Europe united and it gave us one united front. There were like problems over there, but they were able to connect. They were able to make use of economy and economic, opportunities. But that thing is missing in our region. And when you address the SARC has actually in present scenario many a times it is called like an cultural exchange program of India. Some sort of those statements are being made on SARC. So only if there are like if the member states they become actually interested, and it's not like that we cannot revive an institution. We can revive an institution, and if non-alignment movement was able to continue its significance and influence even in Cold War era, or where we had like two blocks, then why not start? So possibilities are there, and I don't believe in like something being like quite impossible. So SARC has that potential, but are we ready to tap those potential is the question. And if we are able to do that, we will be in the position. I mean, we will definitely be able at least to make some marks. For now, it is not at all doing much of the things. It's almost a dead baby, as I have called it in my presentation also. So this is my view on SARC.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I just wanted to know what do you think about it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saroj. Swati, are you here still? Can I ask you something related to the young women? Because it's like in Afghanistan, now we are seeing, it was in the news, that some young or some old women are taking weapons in their hand to fight against the Taliban forces. How do you see this development in Afghanistan?
Yes, so thanks for the question. What I feel is these women are basically, like taking the initiative of. If I have to just begin with, so I mean, there are not much known fact about whether the Taliban recruit women. It is still to be looked upon. That issue hasn't been there, and these women fighters who have taken weapons or like to fight the Taliban is basically again coming from the resistance forces. So I find it I would say it's interesting because all these while women have advocated their rights for peace building and decision making, and here we are seeing a violence. I mean they are taking violence in their hand towards fighting the Taliban. And when we talk about violent extremism, or if we have to compare, the case of Afghanistan with countries like South Sudan, where also women have, taken active role to combat terrorism or extremism. So, if I have to compare it with, the case of South Sudan, I feel there is a lot of scope for Afghan women as well to fight the Taliban forces. The extremist insurgent groups which are emerging in the country, which are really emerging, in a very fast pace. So I find it can be. I wouldn't advocate that it's a progress, but I would say that women are actually taking initiative to fight for themselves, and there is no right or wrong, about it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Swati. Thank you so much, all of you. It was really interesting. Anybody else wants to comment or ask anything, they can. Otherwise, we will conclude the session. Okay, I think we are also tired to take it more and more. So that was really nice, and I would like to thank Nice also that this session on future of Afghanistan was very interesting, and the participant from the different stream with the different topics was really interesting discussion. Thank you so much, all of you. Thank you, Nice. Thank you, Pramodji, for organizing this and inviting all of us to participate in this. Thank you so much. Now we can ask to the coordinator to end the session or play their own videos.
Distinguished Chair, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, as we have come to the end of this session, we would like to express a sincere gratitude and thanks to the Chair for agreeing to chair and moderate the session today. Our sincere thanks also goes to all the speakers for being a part of the event and delivering such comprehensive and convincing presentations. We would like to acknowledge our gratitude to our friends from the diplomatic community, experts, academia, media, and different organizations. Finally, we must also mention our deep sense of appreciation for the audience who participated in the webinar and those who are watching us live. Thank you for your valuable time and attention and for making this session productive with your questions. Once again, we are truly honored to have you all with us today. Please do join us in the next session. Thank you so much.